Zelensky spoke to the European leaders for one day and realized they weren't going to accomplish anything at all. Oh my God. So what exactly has happened? The art of the deal? That's basically what we have watched. President Zelensky came to the White House. He wasn't happy with what the President Trump told him, that he needs to sit on the table and agree to peace deal with Russia. And of course, he decided to play hard to get. Decided, you know what, I'm gonna go to European countries and I'm gonna talk to them and maybe I'm gonna get a deal out of it. So President Zelensky went to Europe countries, did a whole talks with them, and unfortunately, he was just being given promises, no actual deals, no actual money. That what Zelensky needs right now is actual money to buy weapons to continue the war. And what Europeans are promising him is basically promises, which literally is not going to help him. So right now, President Zelensky is forced to go back to America and agree to a new deal. So what's this first? What people are commenting? And let's discuss more at the end of the video. So please stay tuned and don't forget to subscribe. Just in, Zelensky backs down to Trump just hours after US pauses all military aid to Ukraine. Thanks Trump for helping Ukraine. This was so predictable. My team and I stand ready to work under President Trump's strong leadership to get a peace that lasts. We remember the moment when things changed, when President Trump provided Ukraine with javelins. We are grateful for this. I say don't trust this clown. I think it's time to let them fend for themselves. Not one more penny to Ukraine. Zelensky disrespected us and is only coming back because the coffers are drying up. Go pound sand, little guy. Another comment. I don't see an apology. He's not apologetic at all. The European Union is too weak to be useful to him. Rearming Europe will take a decade. He has weeks. Yep. And the EU is way too incompetent to rearm themselves to begin with. This guy ran home crying to mommy in the UK, then was reminded mommy's broke, so he has to go back to dad. Zelensky probably realized that his future is not good, not because of the Ukraine people. It's too late. Another comment. The last time I was here, this is where they had the talk. Why did America pay for now rich Europe defense? What did Zelensky have on Biden and Congress to extort billions of dollars to the world's largest money laundering country? Congress appropriated huge $250 billion to Ukraine. Think about what that could do for Americans. Who Zelensky really is. This is somebody who commented.
Things about Russian-Ukrainian conflict Americans don't understand. I was born in Russia and I will live in the US, and I grew up at the border between Russia and Ukraine. I have a lot of friends in Ukraine, and a lot of them ran in 2014 when the military conflict started. In 2014, that's the first thing Americans don't understand. Armed military conflict started years before. Just the news didn't show it. By the way, I'm not driving. Number 2, Vladimir Zelensky, the president of Ukraine of right now, was elected basically as a joke. There was a series filmed by Ukraine and Russia together, and the main character of the series is Zelensky, who is playing president there. So they implanted this idea into Ukrainian people's brains long time ago. And Zelensky lived and worked in Moscow as an actor. And he started his acting career as a comedian. And everybody, I don't understand Ukrainians, we all grew up watching him dancing on the stage, being a comedian, filming in some small movies, and also the main line of his entire career as a comedian. Most of these guys who were fighting in this contest, comedian contest, it's called KVN. The guys that were there, they always dreamed to be in a high-end society. That was the only way to get to the big stage. It's like America's Got Talents, but for comedians. So from very early stages of his career, Zelensky showed very clearly that he will do anything for money. He was dancing on a pole dance shoes, going on the stage half naked, participating in parties, anywhere he could potentially be noted. So him becoming a president in the first place, it is a marketing campaign. And the situation between Ukraine and Russia is a conflict supported so much by marketing, political marketing.
Cool. Now freeze all his and any Ukrainian politicians' assets that are within our borders or system. Continue the full stop on any military aid to Ukraine. Move forward with a full, transparent, and public audit of all the funding that has been sent to Ukraine. Cut Zelensky completely out of all peace negotiations with Russia. Okay, Zelensky seems like he is all over the place. He claims he will quit if Ukraine can join NATO. Doesn't need the US, he will work with Europe. Now he will work under Trump's strong leadership. Does this sound like a reliable head of state to deal with on such important matters? I guarantee you, even if he signs something, the European Union and he will create a false flag to blame Russia. He is not to be trusted on his word or even his signature. He proved that several years ago. Sounds like the man that just tells folks what they want to hear, not an admirable trait for a nation leader. He's trying to stop his country being taken, so it seems personal ego is not his priority. Everyone has made mistakes in this war with tragic consequences. A lot is coming to light. The focus should be on stopping bloodshed, salvage common ground, and moving forward with transparency and for the benefit of the people who want peace. Acting like a narcissistic coke addict. He sounds like a whistle drug addict, and Zelensky constant attempts to provoke direct conflict between the US and Russia, bad faith negotiation, and reneging on commitments prove that he is no friend of peace, the US, or the American people. Zelensky simply can't be trusted. What he says today means nothing. He'll flip on this and more in a heartbeat. The idea that he's going to tell everyone else what to do is the mistake that media is hoping everybody will make. Europe, Democrats want a nuclear World War III. Trump, MAGA want a return to normalcy before get Russia's statecraft. Russia wants no NATO in Ukraine. Zelensky, who cares? Either way, not another dime. Bracing for I'm ready to sign the mineral deal. That is a cartoon, and that shows Zelensky. Be patient. I'm coming soon. I'm very sorry. Please send me more monies. They're the memes. People are sending the memes. Trump says Zelensky didn't hold the cards, and he doesn't. Europe little virtue signaling party last week won't win the war for Ukraine. And we all know it. Zelensky only has two choices: fight with Europe weak support or accept Trump help to end the war. Trump orders Zelensky to wait till we back out of NATO. Try to bully our president into war. You got him all twisted. This is Donald Trump, baby. He knows none of you have shit without us. Russia is rooting for us too. You may not like Russia, but they like us. Together we are strong. We have people in our own government that made the United States just as much, if not more, than Russia has. We were allies once. We can be again. President Trump's decisive pause on military aid to Ukraine exposes the reality of misplaced priority in Washington, while Zelensky's sudden gratitude for past Javelin shipments reeks of desperation. It's clear the Biden-era blank checks fuel a proxy war rather than peace. Trump move forces Europe to confront its own hypocrisy, pledging support while relying on U.S. taxpayers to foot the bill. Ukraine's 6-month survival estimates without U.S. aid reveals the fragility of their position, and Trump pressure tactics are a masterclass in leveraging American strength to end conflict, not prolong them. The real question: why did it take this long to demand accountability from a government that's banned $200 billion with zero audits? Bureaucrats and globalists hate this approach because it works. He says he's ready to sign the mineral and security agreement, which makes me think he still wants the US to put troops in the Ukraine, especially after his tour through Europe. I think he's just acting like that was part of the agreement all along. Right? He tried multiple times to get Trump to commit to that on camera. It was never part of the deal, and the attempted manipulation only succeeded in pissing off Trump. Don't trust him. But what he did could have led to World War III. All the politicians who met with him prior should be disciplined. And Rice and other non-elected who met or spoke with him need Logan Act violations. To get a peace that lasts. That's right. There's there says it all. As long as Zelensky can declare he doesn't think it will last, gives him a reason to go fighting, all while getting us into the war. They call it pandering. Let the warmongering sweat for a few days with his new mates from Europe who've done sweet affair about peace until Trump said they needed to. Thank you for the heads up, but after everything I'm learning about the status quo, I think the opposite is probably true about almost everything I thought I knew. Remember Gorbachev in Pizza Hut commercial? I think they've always wanted to be allied with us. I'm not saying I trust Putin completely, but I trust him more than Zelensky and the EU and NATO. I trust him more than the Clintons, the Bidens, the Bushes, and Obama all wrapped up in an evil sandwich. If Russia set up bases in Canada, we'd wipe them off the planet. Seems reasonable. The US want a war in the Middle East for 20 years, but Putin stayed out of it. Those were the days. Gorbachev, Thatcher, Reagan. I don't have one thing against Russia. We threatened with NATO just to get into this war. I guarantee you, even if he sends something, the EU and he will create a false flag to blame Russia. He's not to be trusted on his word or even his signature. He proved that several years ago. Amazing how heroic resistance turns into begging the moment the money stops flowing. Zelensky isn't fighting for principle, just for paycheck. This was more predictable than a bad Hollywood sequel. They never were. They can't afford it. Also, you ever notice that the EU and its leaders like to rush to meetings and talk and talk and talk, then get a nice meal? I mean, it's a great life. They never have to risk anything but get to look like they're doing something. That whole European summit narrative, we stand with you to the end, is melting down faster than spring snow. No wonder Poland, well aware of Russian threats for generations and a big supporter of the Ukrainians, categorically rejected the idea of sending their troops there. It's because they're in NATO, you dummy. So is the UK, which pledged those so-called peacekeeping troops last weekend, struggling to grasp the point since you resort to name calling. I was born in Poland and grew up during the last days of communism. Maybe that explains why I see the nuance you're missing. Also remember, he was the first to dash to see Trump when all this started. The man knows his fellow Europeans. All talk, zero action. Poland is only hope for Europe's future. The rest are decline. Ironically, Poland is the Europe city most similar to China in many ways, like infrastructure, military, economy. Will that be the same European leader that just allocated close to $1 trillion to strengthen Ukraine? Serious question. When will money and arms arrive in Ukraine from the EU? It is impossible to take the EU seriously until they actually deliver. It seems they are delivering promises. Not good. Delightful. All of Zelensky issues are solved then. US aid was never necessary then, right? You won't need to request anything from the US again, right? Europe has it handled. All they know is how to spend money very fast. They have no discernible skills in allocation or planning where it should go. If someone can take the money out of their hands as fast as possible, that's enough. Probably the perfect encapsulation of the EU. Get up and make a big promise with zero ability to or intent to deliver. It would have been much better if she said $11 trillion. They say they plan to. You can say whatever you want and make any promises you want. Also, those are mainly to strengthen their militaries. Might need to wait a few years though for them to finish the environmental impact study of increasing defense. You can throw all the money you want, there's no manpower. You can't buy gunship with monopoly money. If money could win wars, Switzerland wouldn't be neutral. Tremble in fear at the mighty power of our very big allocation. It talks until they deliver. Believe that joke, and I've got a swampland to sell you at the Sahara Desert. 800 billion euros. Source on close to a trillion. EU's aid combined is around $138 billion. There is another 122 billion to be allocated but hasn't cleared. The US alone has put 106 billion forward. This is all per Reuters and was updated 11 hours ago. At least make the lie believable. This is a map of Europe by the percentage of the population who say they'll be willing to fight for their country. I really doubt that the comparative wealthy nation of Western Europe have the willpower to back up their leader's statement. The Europe map. I don't trust I don't trust that Zelensky that is wants a deal. The last time he reneged on the deal in the 11th hour. Why should any of us believe he actually wants a serious deal now? If anything, I'm more suspicious that Ukraine will intentionally instigate another conflict after a deal is signed to try and force us to fight Russia for them. Zelensky's credibility is short, and I won't trust a deal made by him. It's close but still word salad. Putin agreed to a ceasefire and talks. Now it is Zelensky's turn to agree to a ceasefire and talks. That is all this is about, beginning the negotiation process. They came up with a few bucks for Zelensky, and then Trump said you're cut off, and he had to rethink his position. Europe doesn't have the money, weapons, intelligence, infrastructure, nor tools to give Ukraine a chance to achieve a stalemate to get a ceasefire and later peace. Anyone with a brain knows Ukraine will not win this war and completely repel the invasion. All the politicians that want to fund Ukraine just want to empower Zelensky to throw his entire population at the Russian to weaken them. In tech, there's a phrase firms give you when they pass when they pass on investing in your startup, cheering you on from the sidelines. Real easy to show support until it gets sent via instructions. If anything, that grandstanding summit over the weekend just illuminated all the more how totally and utterly useless the Europeans are at taking responsibility for their own or anyone else's defense. 100% exactly what happened. Most of these countries have bought more Russian oil in the last year than they promised him in aid over 10 years. They've they are they have over 9 years to get their shit together enough to deal with Russia. I think it should have been clear to Ukraine that was going to be the case before Russia invaded. He also probably reflected on the fact that if Trump wasn't going to take shit from him, he won't take it from Putin either. It's like a bunch of top French nobles waving their hands everywhere and fainting before reapplying their makeup and having a week off. He has no true allies, only politicians and war hawks seeking to use him and his people to harvest more blood money. All Zelensky had to do is pull up any EU standards or regulation on anything, and if he survives not blowing his brains out over that, take a look at how long it took to draft it. For example, EU number 666 stroke 2013 took 6 years to develop and pass. What does it do? It limits the allowed wattage and noise of vacuum cleaners. It was an exercise in grandstanding and nothing else. 100 years ago, appealing to the UK with our mighty empire might have gotten Zelensky somewhere, but no, we are failed states and a regional power at best. Because of decades of self-indulgent leftism, Europe has become a bloated bureaucracy, irrelevancy on the world stage. The bureaucrats exist in a meta reality. Everything they do is for narrative, but getting decisive action is practically impossible. Imagine it's very close to the legacy of royalty. The EU is performative. What Starmer is doing now with the UK is also performative, based upon his rating as Prime Minister and Labour as a whole. It's become very clear, though, that the Cold War never ended, just adapted over time. Didn't he get the money, though? I guess not enough of anything. They were like, Zelensky, we don't think he's bluffing, and well, we just don't want that kind of, we don't have that kind of money. And even if we did, who the hell would we buy the weapons from? He's impatient. He only needs to wait 5 years for them to become self-sufficient countries. So President Zelensky went to Europe. They had this beautiful meeting with the leaders of Europe, and of course they made some promises. And of course, what President Zelensky needs is money to continue the war. But since they were making promises, which at that time, and what he wants is the actual money to continue the war, he realized that, you know, at the end of the day, he needs to go back to America and talk to the president of America, and do a deal that is going to be a win-win for both Ukraine and of course for United States and of course Russia. With NATO right now, they are literally depending on America to continue, you know, being defended. America contribute around 67% of the budget, especially the defense of Europe. And what Ukraine literally needs is billions and billions and billions of dollars that that the NATO, that is the European leaders, do not have at the moment. Right now, Europe is literally facing difficult situations, especially in the economy front, and they're trying so much to be able to take care of their own citizens, so they don't have that extra cash to give Ukraine to continue the war. That is the reality on the ground, and that's what basically what President Zelensky has realized. So he's been forced to go back to the table with the American president and come up with a new peace deal. With all the hula ballo that the media are saying about NATO, the reality is NATO cannot afford to be with war with Russia and Ukraine without the backing of United States. That is the reality. And if US decide to not fund this war for Ukraine and to fight the Russian, then Ukraine, it's just a matter of days for Ukraine to be defeated completely by Russia. And that is the reality on the ground. That is the reality that the whole world knows, that the war has been continuing because US was funding Ukraine by giving them military weapons and of course cash and many other resources so they can continue this war. That is the reality. So with the reality that President Zelensky is facing, that United States current president Donald Trump does not want to continue the war, and with the promises that the European leaders, especially Britain, they were giving Ukraine the money they're offering, it was not enough. It's not going to help them anyway. So he decided, you know what, now I have to go back to the United States and come up with a solution, a lasting solution that is going to help Ukraine, and of course come up with a peace deal with Russia, of course with the supervision of America. That is the reality, and that's the reason why President Zelensky posted that breaking news that, you know, he's agreeing to the peace deal and he wants to have a lasting solution, because there's no money, there's no more money to fund this war. There's no money. Mother America decided no more money to fund this Ukraine war, so they are literally, they have nowhere to go. They have nowhere to go, so they are forced. President Zelensky is forced to go back to the table and come up with and agree to this peace deal that President Donald Trump is offering Ukraine and Russia. Russia has no problem. They've said they're ready. They are ready anytime to discuss peace deal. Of course, with America, of course, supervising. They're ready anytime, any day to end this war with Ukraine, as long as Ukraine is not allowed to join NATO. That is the only condition that Russia has stipulated, and which President Trump has said it's fine, he's okay with it. Although Zelensky is trying to fight tooth and nail to say that, you know, the only way Ukraine is going to be safe is for them to join NATO, but the current political situation is right now, I do not foresee Ukraine being given a position or a membership under NATO, because nobody wants to have a World War III. Nobody. And Russia is ready. They said if they are forced to, they are ready, and nobody wants to be dragged into this World War III. And America has categorically emphasized that they are only interested in making America great. That is the priority that Donald Trump is looking at. He's not thinking of war at all. So back to the drawing board. We are going to see more geopolitical powers playing here, and as always, the Nishika Talk is going to highlight them. So please, guys, watch this space, because right now it's these are interesting time. Please don't forget to subscribe, and I'd love to hear your comments.